Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. This story isn't about some massive family drama or travel chaos like the last time. This one is more personal. It's about a friendship, a joke that went wrong, and how a simple misunderstanding blew up into me being called something truly awful. It's a story about intentions versus perceptions, and whether doing a good thing for a partially selfish reason can ever truly be bad. So let's dive into my first year of college. I'm 18, I'm adjusting, and I'm taking a ton of introductory classes. But there's one experience from high school that's actually proved useful. I took 4 semesters of American Sign Language. I wasn't an expert by any means. I could hold a basic conversation, I knew the grammar, but I was rusty, super rusty. I hadn't had anyone to practice with since I graduated. That changed pretty fast in my introduction to global literature class. There was a new student in the class, a guy named Nolan. Nolan is deaf and nonverbal, a deaf-mute person. He uses an ASL interpreter during the lectures who stands right up at the front near the professor. Nolan is great, he's funny, he's incredibly smart, and he's always engaged in the material. But because of the communication barrier, he was pretty isolated. Everyone in the class was nice to him. They'd smile, hold the door, or tap him politely to get his attention. But no one really tried to know him or genuinely befriend him. And I'm not judging them for that. Honestly, if I hadn't already taken those ASL classes in high school, I probably wouldn't have just picked up a new, complex language just to talk to him either. The barrier is real and it's intimidating. But because I had that little bit of knowledge, I felt this tiny pull to reach out. I waited until after the second class. Everyone was packing up and I walked over to him. The interpreter, a woman named Sharon, was still there. I took a deep breath and I started signing. I signed, "Hi, my name is Olivia. I know a little ASL." Nolan's face lit up. I mean, truly lit up. It was the biggest, warmest smile I'd seen on him yet. He signed back right away, excited and a little fast for my rusty brain. Sharon, the interpreter, stepped back a little, smiling gently. She recognized that this was a moment of direct, student-to-student connection, and she let us have it. I struggled through his response, asking him to slow down. We ended up having a short, halting conversation about the homework, and I used a lot of fingerspelling, which is slow-going. But it was a conversation, and that was huge. From that day on, we became inseparable in that class and quickly outside of it. Nolan and I started meeting up for study sessions or just to hang out in the common areas. He put away his phone and we would sign. This wasn't just a friendly gesture for him, it was an incredible learning experience for me. Here's the thing, my ASL improved drastically. We're talking leaps and bounds. Going from a high school classroom setting to actually communicating complex ideas, jokes, emotions, college-level concepts with a native, fluent user of the language daily is the best immersion you can possibly get. I was signing almost every single day since September, and I could feel my speed, my fluency, and my understanding of deaf culture soaring. It was a beautiful friendship, built entirely on communication, mutual respect, and a shared effort to understand each other. I was thrilled to finally have a close friend in that class, and I was equally thrilled that I was finally putting my old ASL skills to such amazing use. This brings us to the moment where things got unnecessarily complicated. About a week ago, Nolan and I were hanging out at the campus cafe, signing about our class schedule for the next semester. We were talking about electives, and I mentioned I was thinking about signing up for ASL 3, the intermediate course. Nolan, ever the motivator, signed, "You absolutely should. You are so good at signing now, but you need to polish your technique. You should start taking lessons again." Now, at this point, we had established a great rapport. We joked around constantly, using both facial expressions and ASL classifiers to convey sarcasm and humor. In that moment, I wasn't really thinking. I saw him as my fantastic free language tutor who was always available to practice. So I responded with a quick joking sign. I laughed immediately after as I signed the phrase, "That's what you're for." and I made a funny face to go with it, indicating that he was my wonderful personal practice partner. But the moment the sign left my hands, I saw his expression change. It wasn't his usual thoughtful look. It was a flash of genuine hurt. He looked immediately offended, and his hands dropped. My heart sank. I knew instantly that the joke had landed wrong. Maybe my signing was off, maybe the context wasn't clear, or maybe that specific phrase in ASL doesn't translate well as a playful jab. Whatever the reason, he took it literally. He took it as me saying, "The only reason I spend time with you is to use you to learn a language." I apologized immediately. I rushed to explain myself, signing quickly and clearly. "I'm so sorry, Nolan. That was a joke. I mean that you are my best practice partner and that I love learning from you. I love hanging out with you because you're my friend. I didn't mean it that way at all." He paused. He looked at me, really looking at me. Then he signed back slowly, "I understand. It is okay. I should not have gotten upset." He apologized to me for being upset. Even though the fault was clearly mine for the clumsy joke, he was apologizing for his reaction. That's just the kind of genuinely sweet, non-confrontational guy he is. He acted a bit distant for the next couple of days, which was understandable. There was a little awkwardness. I gave him space, but I also made a point of continuing to sign with him, making sure our conversations focused on things we enjoy, not just me asking him how to sign a specific word. Eventually, the distance faded, the jokes returned, and we were completely fine. Our friendship bounced back, stronger than before, because we navigated a serious misunderstanding and fixed it. I thought that was the end of it. The joke was made, the friend was hurt, the apology was accepted, and we moved on. But I forgot one crucial element: gossip in a college environment. Today, I was talking to another friend of mine, a guy I'll call Liam. Liam is a decent guy, we share a class together, but he can be kind of a loudmouth. Came up to me and asked if everything was all right with Nolan. He said he noticed we had been a little distant lately. I told him, "Oh, we had a little fight last week, but don't worry, we're completely fine now." But for some reason, Liam wouldn't let it go. He started joking about it, trying to be funny, I guess. He said, "You know, they say there's some truth in every joke, Liv." I laughed it off, even though it felt a little uncomfortable. I tried to change the subject, but he kept pressing. Then, he dropped the line that made my blood run cold. He said something like, "Well, I knew you wouldn't hang with a guy like him for no reason, right?" I just froze. My brain slammed to a halt. A guy like him? What did that even mean? I just stared at Liam, my mouth open in disbelief. I managed to say, "Excuse me? What are you talking about?" Liam was completely unfazed. He shrugged like he was stating a basic fact of life. He said, "I mean, it's the truth, Liv. You're only hanging out with him because he's your personal ASL teacher. It's a good deal for you. He's useful. I knew you wouldn't hang out with a guy who can't talk for no reason." I was furious. Absolutely furious. I felt my face flush, and I could hear the anger rising in my voice. I told him that was one of the rudest, most disgusting things I had ever heard. I called him a bigot and an ableist. That really got under his skin. He snapped back at me, yelling across the student lounge. He said, "Oh, you are not one to talk. You're worse than me, Liv. At least I'm honest. You're taking advantage of a disabled guy and using him for your own benefit." He said I was using a disabled person for my own benefit. The accusation, hanging there in the air, suddenly made me feel sick. Was he right? Was my true motivation, beneath the layer of friendship, purely transactional? Was I an asshole for letting my language practice be a major benefit of the friendship? I need to process this, and I need you guys to tell me, does the benefit I get from the friendship make me a user, an opportunist, or am I just a friend who happens to benefit from a mutual exchange? I stood there in the student lounge, staring at Liam, who was still red-faced and yelling about me, taking advantage of a disabled person. That sentence hit me like a physical blow. It was such a malicious twisting of my actions, and yet, because of my clumsy joke to Nolan, I suddenly felt a horrible, creeping doubt. Was Liam right? I wasn't going to let him win, though. Not with that garbage coming out of his mouth. You are unbelievable, Liam, I signed. Yes, I was signing almost unconsciously because Nolan and I sign in that lounge all the time. You call me a user, but you have never even made eye contact with Nolan. You wouldn't even attempt to talk to him. You think a deaf person is someone who can't offer anything unless they are useful. That is bigotry. He scoffed. Oh, come on, Liv. Don't pull the moral high ground crap. You admit your ASL is better now, right? You joke about him being your tutor. I don't pretend to be Mother Teresa. I just call things as they are. You're getting a huge benefit from him. If he wasn't deaf, would you even be friends? That question, if he wasn't deaf, would you even be friends? Was deeply uncomfortable because it required me to dissect the very foundation of my bond with Nolan. The honest truth is, I probably wouldn't have approached him first if I didn't know ASL. My knowledge of ASL was the key that unlocked the door to our friendship. But now that the door was open, the connection was real. We talk about classes, bad college food, music, movies, and our career hopes. We share secrets and support each other when we're stressed. The bond exists independent of the language now, but the language started it. I tried to explain the difference to Liam, but he was stuck on his simplistic transactional view. It's a mutual exchange, you idiot. I shot back. I give him a direct connection to a hearing peer in a place where he's often isolated. I provide him with spontaneous conversation, which is hard to get when you always rely on a scheduled interpreter. I bring him into social settings with me. I'm giving him the friendship he deserves, and in return, my language skills improve. It's a classic win-win. But Liam just waved his hand dismissively. Yeah. You're the white knight. Look, the fact is, you joke about using him. He got upset. He knows the score, and you're just trying to pretend it's some wholesome Disney movie friendship. I'm just saying what everyone else is thinking. That last line worried me the most. Was everyone else thinking that? Were they looking at my friendship with Nolan and seeing only an opportunistic ASL-hungry college student using a lonely, disabled classmate for personal gain? I walked away from Liam, my head spinning. The entire afternoon, I couldn't focus. I kept going over the benefits I was gaining versus the benefits I was providing. On my side, fluency in ASL. This is a huge professional skill, opening up career doors in education, social work, or even interpretation. It's valuable. A genuine, fulfilling friendship, which is priceless but hard to quantify. On Nolan's side, constant, spontaneous communication. I'm always available to sign, which is a massive relief from the structured interpretation he usually deals with. Inclusion. I actively bring him into conversations and introduce him to groups, ensuring he isn't isolated. A genuine, fulfilling friendship. When I list it out, it still looks balanced. It looks like a healthy, mutually beneficial friendship. But Liam's accusation that I'm taking advantage of a disabled person introduced a dark, heavy element to the situation. Forces a moral reckoning because society rightly holds you to a higher standard when interacting with someone who might be vulnerable. I decided I needed a sanity check, but I couldn't ask Nolan. That would just bring up the hurtful joke all over again. I needed someone outside the drama. I called my roommate Chloe that evening. Chloe is level-headed and doesn't know Nolan or Liam, so she was a perfect neutral observer. I told her the entire story, from my ASL background and the rustiness to meeting Nolan, my rapid improvement, the clumsy joke, and Liam's explosive accusation. Chloe listened patiently, and when I was done, she paused for a long time. Okay, Liv, she finally said. Liam is 100% an ableist jerk, and you know that. His whole premise, that Nolan is somehow less of a person or less worth being friends with because he's deaf, is bigoted garbage. You were right to call him out. I sighed with relief. Thank you. That's what I thought. But, she continued, you asked me if you were using him for your own benefit. And the answer is, yes, you are. My stomach dropped again. Wait, what? Let me finish, she said. You are using him, but in the same way all friends use each other. I use my friend Marcus because he gives me rides to work. He uses me because I bake him cookies when he's stressed. We are mutually beneficial. The only thing that makes your situation morally questionable is that society has conditioned us to believe that you shouldn't gain anything from someone who is perceived as having less agency or power, in this case, someone who is disabled. But that thinking is actually infantilizing to Nolan. She went on to explain her point of view. She argued that Liam's ableism assumes Nolan is a helpless victim incapable of making his own choices. Liam believes Nolan is too naive to realize he's being used for language practice. You know what Nolan gets? Chloe asked me. He gets a friendship built on his terms, a friendship where the primary language is his own. That's a huge emotional and cultural payoff for him. Your ASL practice is a beneficial byproduct of the friendship, not its sole engine. If you were only spending 5 minutes a week with him drilling grammar, that would be exploitation. But you're dedicating hours of your time and emotional energy. That's called a friendship contract, and it's mutual. Her perspective was a massive relief. Confirmed my feelings while also acknowledging the complex ethical gray area that Liam had tried to weaponize against me. Liam saw a transaction, I saw a relationship. But the situation wasn't over. Liam had made his accusation very publicly, and I knew I had to handle the lingering perception it might create, especially if Nolan ever heard about it. The next day, I saw Liam again. He tried to ignore me, but I wasn't going to let his disgusting accusations stand in public. I pulled him aside after class, and I spoke quietly but firmly. Listen to me, Liam. You need to drop this. You don't know the first thing about my friendship with Nolan, and you certainly don't know anything about deaf culture. He immediately got defensive. I know enough to know when someone is taking advantage of someone vulnerable, Liv. You practically admitted it with your joke. The joke was stupid, and I apologized immediately, which is more than you've done for your ableist comments, I countered. The whole idea that a disabled person is someone who can only be taken from is the worst kind of pity. Nolan is a fluent, expressive language user. I am a learner. He gets to communicate in his first language and gain a friend I get to practice. We both benefit. That's called a healthy relationship, not exploitation. I tried to explain the concept of reciprocity in friendships, but Liam couldn't get past his own narrow view of what constitutes normal friendship. For him, friendship had to be about two people who were exactly the same with no unusual barriers or skills involved. The moment a perceived disadvantage, Nolan being deaf, mixed with a skill gain, my ASL improvement, he labeled it predatory. He just shook his head. Look, I get that you're trying to make yourself feel better, but your actions speak louder, Liv. Just because he's a nice guy doesn't mean you're not using him. I realized then that Liam wasn't just judgmental. He was actively prejudiced. He couldn't grasp the concept that Nolan, despite his disability, was a whole, valuable person with plenty to offer. Liam only saw the lack of hearing, lack of speech, and therefore assumed Nolan was a charity case I was cleverly exploiting. I felt a tremendous sadness for Nolan, realizing this is the kind of silent judgment he probably faces every single day. The judgment of people who are too lazy or prejudiced to see past the label. I finally gave up on convincing Liam. You know what, Liam? You keep thinking I'm a user and an opportunist. I'll keep being Nolan's friend, and I'll keep talking to him every day in his language. You keep being the guy who stands on the sidelines judging people you're too scared to talk to. See who ends up happier. I walked away, feeling a mix of frustration and quiet victory. I didn't change his mind, but I shut him down. The next challenge, however, was internal. Liam's words had planted a seed of doubt, and I knew I couldn't be a true friend to Nolan until I pulled that seed out. I had to address the joke itself, not the accusation. The joke, "that's what you're for," had been clumsy because it reduced our complex connection to a utilitarian function. I knew I needed to talk to Nolan again about it, but this time from the perspective of how much I valued him, not just his language. A few days later, Nolan and I were signing at our usual spot in the library. The atmosphere was light, completely back to normal. We were laughing about a professor's odd habit. I took a deep breath and I signed slowly, making sure my expression was serious and heartfelt. "Nolan, can we talk about the joke I made last week? About you being what I'm for?" He looked surprised. He signed back, "Olivia, we already talked." I said I understood. "It is okay." "I know you were gracious," I signed. "But I want you to know how truly sorry I am that I signed that. It was lazy and thoughtless. I did not want you to think for 1 second that the only reason I am your friend is because you sign. You are my friend because you are funny, you are smart, you challenge me, and you are a good person. Practicing ASL is a great bonus, but the friendship is the real language I care about." I watched his hands. He was silent for a moment, and his expression softened completely. He was reading my heart in my signs and my face. He signed back, "Olivia, I know you. When we first met, I was so lonely. Nobody signed to me. Nobody wanted to struggle. You did. You took a chance. You started the conversation. I saw your effort. I know you like to sign with me. I also know you like to be my friend. I get a friend. You get practice. We are happy. It is a good trade." Then he paused and signed with a little twinkle in his eye. "But next time I want a cookie for practice." We both burst out laughing. That was the moment I realized the full foolishness of Liam's argument. He was looking for exploitation, but Nolan and I were operating on joyful reciprocity. Nolan was not a victim being taken advantage of. He was an equal participant in a fulfilling relationship. He knew exactly what he was giving and what he was getting, and he deemed the exchange completely fair. The exchange of 1,000 words of sign practice for the priceless gift of inclusion and friendship. A phenomenal bargain, if you ask me. So, was I the asshole for using a disabled person for my own benefit? When I look at it with the lens Liam used, a cold, transactional lens, it seems possible. I definitely gained a professional skill from the relationship. And yes, my own self-interest, the desire to improve my ASL, was the initial motivation that got me across the room. But intention matters, and the outcome matters even more. My initial intention might have been self-serving. I wanted to practice ASL. But that intention was quickly and permanently replaced by the genuine, evolving intention of friendship. The benefit I received stopped being a goal and became a byproduct. Liam and people like him see disability as a deficit that can only lead to exploitation when a benefit is gained. They completely miss the enormous positive impact that inclusion and spontaneous communication have on a person who is often isolated. Nolan needed a friend who spoke his language, and I was exactly that. Truth is, all friendships are mutually beneficial. We gravitate towards people who lift us up, teach us things, support us emotionally, or help us practically. Liam helps his other friends move furniture and he gets free pizza. That's a benefit. The only reason he judged my interaction with Nolan differently is because Nolan is deaf, and Liam's prejudice views deafness as an obstacle to true, normal friendship. By calling me out, Liam wasn't protecting Nolan. He was protecting his own prejudiced worldview, one that says difference equals difficulty and difficulty should be avoided. The most important lesson I learned is this: don't let perceived moral complexity stop you from building a genuine connection. If your primary motivation is respect, kindness, and building an equal relationship, the benefits you gain are not exploitation. They are simply the rewards of a healthy connection. The fact that I got better at ASL is a testament to the effort I put into the friendship, not a sign that I was exploiting it. My friendship with Nolan continues to be one of the best parts of my college experience. We still practice, we still laugh, and we still share cookies. I still plan to take ASL 3, but now I'll be taking it with the confidence that comes from having a truly great friend and language partner. And Liam? Well, he's still standing on the sidelines trying to stir up drama, but no one is really listening. The light of genuine friendship is always brighter than the shadow of prejudice. To anyone out there who hesitates to reach out to someone because you feel like you might be doing it for the wrong reasons or you fear it might look like charity, don't let that fear stop you. Focus on the person, not the label. Focus on what you can give: respect, inclusion, time, and let the benefits you receive be the natural, wonderful reward of an equitable relationship. Be kind, be honest, and if you accidentally make a clumsy joke, apologize immediately and sincerely. If you found this story thought-provoking and you want to hear more about complex friendships, moral gray areas, and navigating the weird world of college life, please hit that subscribe button. Every subscription helps me share these deeper, more meaningful stories. Also, give this video a like and let me know in the comments. Do you think there's a difference between mutual benefit and exploitation, especially when disability is involved? I'd love to read your take on this. Thanks so much for watching.